I hid under the bed while my husband the king made love to another woman. Aldrich, I'm yours. I pressed my fist to my mouth so my sobs wouldn't be heard. Not that they would hear her cries drowned out everything. This betrayal would have been life-ruining on any night. But tonight was the eve of the winter solstice celebrations, when I was meant to appear beside him as a devoted wife before the entire realm. When the woman cried out in ecstasy, my stomach dropped. I couldn't bear it. How could he betray me with her of all people? This woman was whispered to be nothing more than a runaway slave. Aldrich had found her caught in a hunting trap on the castle grounds. He brought her here to tend to her wounds, and now she was in my bed. Hurry and get dressed, Rose. We need to leave before Bronwyn comes. Rose laughed softly, her voice laced with mockery. What? Are you scared she'll find out about us? Aldrich's tone darkened. I am the king. It is my right to take a concubine. She will accept it. She has no choice. Then why hide me? Rose teased. You're afraid you'll whisper my name as you touch her. Enough, he growled. You do not know her temper. I simply don't wish to deal with her tears tonight. That was enough. I rose from under the bed like something dragged out of the grave. He turned first. Aldrich, my king, my husband. His hair was mussed and his mouth slicked. His eyes widened. Bronwyn. Don't say my name, I said. Don't dare. My gaze found the girl. Startled blue eyes, pale skin, bare shoulders. Rose. For a moment I stood there, frozen to the spot as a cold dread washed over me. All of the rumours had been true. My husband's concubine was without a doubt the most stunning woman I had ever laid eyes on. I knew then that she was going to bring ruin to my life and to my empire. I took a step toward her, but then the door suddenly burst open. Your Highness! Sir Artemis, my royal protector, shouted. Are you safe? I didn't answer. My eyes were still on Rose. Pleased to meet you, miss. My name is Rose, she said in a voice as soft as a lullaby. It was time to put this woman in her place. So, you're the slave. I kept my voice icy. No, your majesty, I'm no such thing. The bandage at her ankle was visible from beneath the linen, clean and white. I own the crown, I said, my voice steady. You will not make a scene, Aldrich said. Leave. We'll speak when you're calm. I stared at him, the man who had once conquered battlefields for me, who had bled for me. Now he lay naked beside a girl he'd pulled from a trap, and I was the enemy. Do you love her? I asked. He didn't answer. That silence was answer enough. Something in me went quiet too. Artemis, I said, eyes still on Aldrich. Let's go. Someone has to actually run the kingdom. Aldrich took a step toward me, fury rising. Artemis moved faster, blocking him. The king's jaw clenched. For a moment I thought he might strike him, but he didn't. Rose whimpered. Post 2 guards at his door, I said to Artemis as I walked out. Not for him. For me. He'll need the protection. I crossed the threshold without looking back. I marched through the palace, keeping my head down, afraid that someone would see my brimming tears. I needed to be away from everyone. I needed to be alone. Breaking into a run, I made for the palace garden. I walked without my cloak, my breath fogging the air. The silence was merciful, no courtiers, no whispers, no Rose in my husband's bed. Only the ache of betrayal thudding in my ribs like a second heartbeat. I made for a small area with a secluded nest chair and a fountain. It was my secret comfort place, where no one ever went, not even my ladies-in-waiting. I stopped beside the fountain. Its water had begun to freeze at the edges, a thin white crust catching moonlight. I stared at my reflection until it blurred, 2 faces becoming one. The queen the world saw, and the woman Aldrich had shattered. A shadow rippled across the moonlit garden. I looked up just as a midnight black hawk glided through the mist, wings cutting the air with eerie precision. It landed on the frozen rim of the fountain, its amber eyes glowing like molten gold, far too knowing for any simple creature. We stared at one another. My breath smoked. Its breath did not. Careful not to make any sudden movements, I slowly approached the bird. It was an alert little thing, instantly aware of me, and yet it showed no fear. Emboldened by this, I reached out my hand. The bird cocked its head but quickly hopped on. As I brushed a trembling finger over its feathers, I felt a faint heat rise beneath my skin, an ember of something I could not name. That was when I noticed it. A scroll tied to its leg with silver ribbon. I loosened the knot and unfurled the parchment. Ink shimmered like starlight, shifting across the surface as if alive. The message read, "He was never yours. You belong to a greater kingdom, the only kingdom where magic still thrives. The power burning in you is real, and only us together can awaken it." I swallowed hard, staring at the shimmering words until they blurred. Then I laughed. The sound startled me. What powers? What kingdom? Did they mean the Celestial Isles? Whispers had always claimed their bloodlines still carried ancient magic, but that was myth. Fairy tales. Dangerous nonsense in Aldrich's court. And yet, I looked down at my hands, they tingled with an icy surge. Or was I just imagining that? A thought struck me, sharp and terrifying. Do I have secret powers? Powers even Aldrich does not know about? Powers someone else has already seen? The hawk blinked at me once, as if waiting, as if inviting me to follow a truth I had never dared to imagine. "Tell whoever sent you that I don't know about any powers," I said. "But what I do know is that I have a responsibility to the kingdom. I am queen. I have a duty." The hawk's cry split the silence. A single piercing note. It spread its wings and the wind surged around me. And then it was gone, ascending into the silver fog. The world returned to its usual quiet, but something inside me had shifted, irrevocably. I couldn't let my emotions overwhelm me. That would mean Aldrich broke me, and I wouldn't let him. But, despite my best efforts, a single tear managed to loose. "I am a good wife," I said to the empty air, and the words did not mean what they had meant an hour ago. "I am a better queen." My reflection in the fountain no longer trembled. It smiled back. Next morning, when I emerged from my bedchamber, I heard my ladies-in-waiting chattering amongst themselves in whispered tones. I heard the filthy tramp is a runaway slave. "She got onto the hunting ground while she was fleeing her masters," Laura said. "That's how Aldrich found her, caught in one of his animal traps. If she really is a slave, she should be sent back immediately. How embarrassing is it for the palace that the king has taken her in," Eliza said. "I heard he even tended to her wound personally. Can you imagine? The king, alone with a woman like that, tending to her bare flesh." My heart sank at those words. Straightening my back, I did my best to hold back my emotions, but I finally broke into tears when Eliza saw me listening to all of it. "My queen, we are sorry you had to hear this, but trust me, it will be fine. The king will soon get tired of his new plaything. Everything will be fine." "Oh, I'm fine, Eliza. Really. After all, kings do such things, and ours was an arranged marriage." I tried to assure her, but my voice still trembled. I tried to fake another smile, but this time I broke down entirely. "Eliza, I thought we loved each other. Oh, Eliza, how could Aldrich do this to me?" Eliza didn't say anything. She just hugged me as I cried. Just then, Sir Artemis interrupted us. "Your Highness, the winter solstice ball preparations begin today. The guests will be arriving soon." "Ah, I just hate being a queen right now. My whole world is falling apart and I can't even cry in peace." The winter solstice ball was the upcoming greatest event of the year. Foreign nobles and dignitaries travel in from far and wide for it. I quickly wiped my tears and turned to Sir Artemis. He was already kneeling, waiting for orders. The sight of his discipline, his absolute steadiness, snapped something back into place inside me. "Duty," I told myself. "I can't break. I have a responsibility to the kingdom." I straightened my shoulders and prepared to do my job. My schedule left no room for weakness. But as the morning wore on, duty pressed in from all sides. Meetings, schedules, preparations. Everyone needed something from me. Everyone except the one person whose loyalty I had once trusted without question. By the time Sir Artemis finished listing the tasks for the day, my heart felt like it was splintering beneath the weight of it all. I needed air, I needed space, I needed clarity, and there was only one place in the palace where I ever found it: the Western Gardens. The hawk's last message, "He was never yours," still thrummed like a warning beneath my skin. Maybe it was foolish to hope he might return. Maybe it was weakness to long for a sign, a whisper, a direction. But something inside me tugged toward the gardens, the way a needle is drawn to the north. So I dismissed my ladies gently, squared my shoulders and walked. I told myself I was going there to think. But the truth was simpler, sharper. I needed to breathe before the solstice began to crush me. I cut through the gardens of the Western Palace, renowned across the realm, boasting divine flowers, priceless statues and majestic trees soaring well into the sky. Normally, It was one of my favourite places to stroll and soothe my mind. But today, nothing could calm me. I hurried toward my spot in the Western Gardens, hoping, ridiculously, that the hawk might return. But laughter reached me before I turned the corner. Not kind laughter, not polite court girl laughter. This was sharper, bright, and barbed, designed to cut. And there she was, Rose, draped in a gown of sun-washed gold, the king's favourite colour on me. She had taken my seat, my garden surrounded by noblewomen, who clung to every poisonous word that dripped from her mouth. I approached in silence. The guards bowed. The nobles didn't notice me yet. They were too busy gossiping. "Did you hear?" one lady whispered excitedly. "Prince Henry sent word to the council this morning." My breath stilled. Rose's smile flickered. Another noblewoman leaned closer, fanning herself dramatically. "He's coming to the solstice ball in person. His Majesty nearly fainted." Soft gasps. "Oh, the Celestial Isles never do anything quietly," another chimed. "When Prince Henry arrives, kingdoms bend. Even our king must." Rose's grin tightened at the edges. A third whispered behind her hand. "And they say he inherited the last traces of true magic transformation magic. The rest of the realm lost centuries ago." "And magic?" Someone scoffed lightly. "Imagine if a man like that set eyes on the wrong woman." Another giggled. "From what I hear, Henry doesn't set eyes. He claims hearts. Men fear him. Women try not to fall at his feet." Rose stiffened, clearly rattled that a stranger she hadn't even met could steal her spotlight. "Honestly," she said with false sweetness, "he can't be that impressive." A noblewoman huffed. "My dear, compared to Prince Henry, even His Majesty looks dim." More laughter. And in that delicious, stinging moment, that's when the circle finally saw me. Every head snapped around. Gasps, curtsies, nervous smiles. We had already stood inches apart in the bed he'd once shared with me. But this time, something in me had changed. Rose's eyes glittered with triumph. "Your Majesty," she cooed, "still wandering the gardens alone?" "I prefer solitude," I replied coolly, "to sharing space with whores." Rose rose to her feet, all saccharine poison. "Your Majesty," she said, voice dipped in honey and venom. "How lovely of you to join us. We were just speaking of loyalty." "Then I hope you found some," I said. A ripple of startled amusement. Rose gestured to the empty chair across from her. "Please, sit. You must be tired after council. Such matters must weigh heavily, especially when one rules alone." "I imagine it weighs heavier on those who cling to borrowed power," I replied. Soft O.S. fluttered through the group. Rose's jaw tightened. "If only all wives were as understanding. If only all women stayed in their place." Her eyes narrowed. "And where should that be?" I leaned just a fraction closer, voice smooth as frost. "Not in my sunlight." Gasps rolled across the garden like a tide. Rose's smile faltered. "Threats, Your Majesty?" "Forecasts," I said gently. "The weather changes quickly in this garden." From behind me, hurried footsteps approached. Aldrich rounded the corner of the garden path. I froze. Aldrich's head snapped toward me, startled. "Bronwyn," he said, surprised to see me as if he had not seen me in years. "What are you doing here?" "This is my spot. What are you doing here?" I replied. A flicker of unease crossed his face before Rose interrupted. "We're celebrating, it's official," she announced. "His Majesty has named me his concubine." "I assumed as much," I replied. "You've certainly made yourself comfortable in the role." Aldrich stepped forward. "Bronwyn, you will show her respect." "She already showed me hers," I said evenly, "by invading my marriage bed. That landed, hard." His jaw tightened. "You will formally recognize her." "No." The word left me clean, controlled, unshaking. Aldrich blinked. He wasn't used to this steadiness, this refusal. "Bronwyn," he said dangerously, "I am your king." "And I said, lifting my chin, "I'm your queen, not your slave." Rose gasped. Aldrich's fury snapped. "Guards!" Steel clattered as armoured knights stepped from the hedges. "On your knees," a knight barked. "I will not kneel to your whore." Aldrich burst. "Do it." A kick behind my knee sent me crashing down. Pain lit up my leg, but I refused to give him the gasp he wanted. "Recognize her," he ordered. "Say her name." My pulse thundered hot and cold, colliding beneath my skin. Frost whispered outward from my palms, thin as breath on glass. Magic. Awakening. Not now. Not here. I curled my fingers, hiding the ice. A blade pressed to my neck. Say her name, Aldrich snarled, before I make you. Anger crackled through me like breaking ice. Very well, I forced out. I acknowledge you, Miss Rose. Rose's smile was vicious. You're learning, Bronwyn. The night shoved me lower. My hands struck the earth and frost bloomed beneath my palms alive, spreading. I hid it beneath my cloak before anyone could see. Aldrich stared at me for one long, uncertain moment. You're different, he muttered. What game are you playing? The one you taught me, I answered. He stiffened. Rose tugged his arm, and just like that they turned away. Leaving me kneeling on the frozen ground, I stayed where I was, breathing hard, frost melting beneath my fingertips. Then, a soft shift from the branches above, a shadow. I looked up. Perched above me was the midnight hawk, as if it had witnessed everything, as if it had been waiting for this moment. Feathers gleamed in the sun, eyes like molten amber alive, intelligent, knowing. You again, I whispered. It did not move. It simply tilted its head, as if acknowledging the weight on my shoulders and the spark rising beneath my skin. It lifted one talon. A strip of parchment gleamed against its claws. My fingers brushed its warm leg as I untied the ribbon. I unrolled the parchment. The ink pulsed faintly, as if it were alive. At the solstice ball your chains will break. A cold rush rippled through me. And when they break, I breathed, what then? As if answering, the parchment grew hot, then dissolved into silver ash. Magic, real magic. What power do I hold? I whispered. What secret? The hawk let out a low, knowing cry, a sound that sent icy heat coursing through me. With a burst of wings it vanished into the sky. But the truth it left behind stayed burning beneath my skin. Something inside me was waking, and someone out there knew it. Who was the person sending these messages? The hawk soared across the garden in one long, perfect sweep. It vanished into the shadowed alcove where lantern light never reached. There, its feathers shivered and its outline began to blur. Bones shifted, talons curled into fingers, wings folded inward as the creature's form unravelled. And then, from the darkness, a man stepped forward, tall, broad-shouldered, carved from moonlit shadow. Prince Henry. His breath came unsteady, as though the message he'd just delivered had shaken him more than he wished to admit. Bronwyn, he whispered into the night, her name spoken like a secret vow. Then a voice answered from the trees. Your Highness. Another hawk landed on a gnarled pine branch. Its black feathers dissolved into smoke, into limbs, into a man with sharp eyes and an even sharper tongue. Henry didn't turn. You followed me. Of course I followed you. The man snapped. You're the heir to the Celestial Isles. You were sent to scout political alliances, not to exchange moonlit messages with the Queen of Elisaria. Henry let out a low breath, mist curling in the cold air. I was scouting. The beautiful women, the other muttered. Henry's jaw flexed. He didn't deny it. His companion stepped closer, lowering his voice. This is dangerous. The Queen is King Aldrich's wife, his pride, his possession. If he discovers... Henry cut him off, tone low and controlled. He won't, and even if he did, she's worth the risk. The man stiffened. Worth? Henry, you barely know her. You're wrong, Henry said quietly. I know exactly what she is. The wind hushed. The forest listened. She's special, Henry continued, and she doesn't even know it yet. There's power in her bloodline, power older than the throne she sits on. His companion swallowed. The Winter bloodline. Henry nodded. She could change everything, not just Elisaria. The Celestial Isles, the alliances between realms, the balance of magic itself. A long, heavy pause. And what, his friend finally asked, will you do if King Aldrich finds out? Henry's smile was faint, dangerous. I suppose that depends on which king reaches her first. The other man exhaled sharply. Your Highness, this is madness. No, Henry said, eyes fixed on the distant palace tower where Bronwyn's candles still flickered. It's destiny. A gust of wind swept across the pines, scattering silver needles like sparks. Come, the companion urged. Dawn approaches. Henry took one last look toward Bronwyn's window, the woman whose magic he had glimpsed, whose strength he felt awakening. The solstice ball, he murmured. That is where everything changes. Their forms shimmered, unravelling back into feathers and flight. Two hawks burst into the sky, wheeling apart under the cold moon. Above the palace rooftops, the two hawks parted paths, one loyal to the Isles, one loyal only to the Queen. When I returned to my chambers that afternoon, one of Aldrich's secretaries was waiting for me looking displeased. He informed me the king requested my presence, immediately. I felt all my happiness drain away, because I knew this had to be about her, Rose. I sighed and replied, "Very well, lead the way." Before I knew it, I found myself being admitted into Aldrich's darkened library. He stood with his back to me, silhouetted against the fire. "I've been waiting for you for an hour," he said. When he finally turned, his expression was carved from stone. "Now tell me, do you have something you want to confess?" My blood went cold. Had he seen the frost? Had he found the letters? Did he somehow know about the hawk? I don't know what you mean," I managed. His eyes narrowed. "Are you keeping something from me, Bronwyn?" The room tightened around me. The faintest chill flickered beneath my skin. Then, he slammed a hand on the desk. "Have you been spreading rumours about Prince Henry's arrival? Half the court is whispering about the Celestial Isles as if you know something I don't." Relief rushed through me so sharply it almost made me laugh. "No," I said coolly, "but interesting that it bothers you." His brows drew together. "Bothers me?" "Yes," I said softly. "Jealousy tends to hurt." A muscle ticked in his jaw. "Henry is nothing," Aldrich snapped. "His father's realm is only powerful because they hoard the last remnants of—" He stopped himself from saying the word magic. "Never mind." I kept my face composed, even as the hawk's message pulsed in my memory. "So," I said lightly, "is that all? Or did you drag me here to discuss your insecurities?" His nostrils flared. "No, I dragged you here because I have an order for you." He stepped closer. "Since Miss Rose is now my official concubine, she will require a lady-in-waiting. You will find one for her." My heart gave a slow, icy twist. "That would effectively make me her servant," I said. "Yes," Aldrich said, lips curving with quiet cruelty. "Exactly. And you will see that suitable solstice gifts are sent to her chambers," he added. "Jewels, silks, something that shows the court their queen welcomes my concubine." Welcomes her. As if I were meant to gift wrap my own humiliation. My pulse began to thrum. The fire in the hearth gave a sudden crack, then dimmed. Aldrich's brows knit. "What was that?" I forced calm into my breath. "You asked much of me," I said steadily. "Too much." "I ask what I am owed," he growled. "You acknowledged her publicly. This is merely the next step." The flame sputtered again, shrinking lower. He didn't seem to notice. Bronwyn breathed, control it. Finally, I inclined my head just slightly. "As you command, Your Majesty." For a moment, Aldrich simply stared at me, something unsettled flickering behind his eyes, as if he couldn't decide whether to be satisfied or wary. "You're different," he said quietly. "I don't like it." I lifted my chin. "Perhaps you never liked me at all." The hearth gave one last violent sputter, and the fire went out. Aldrich's eyes widened. Before he could question it, I swept past him. "Good day, Your Majesty," I said, and left him standing in the cold dark. The moment the door closed behind me, Eliza burst out. "Nonsense! Why must you provide a servant for the concubine? She should be serving you." The other ladies murmured in furious agreement. "Are we truly doing this?" another asked. "Finding her a lady-in-waiting?" I exhaled, tension melting into something colder, sharper. "I admitted her publicly," I said. "As humiliating as it was, a queen honors her word." They quieted. "Besides," I added, setting my shoulders, "I will not give Aldrich any excuse to claim I am sabotaging his concubine. Not yet." The last word slipped out, soft but unmistakable. "Not yet." "He has also ordered that I send solstice gifts to her chambers," I said. "So we will. Proper jewels, proper silks, everything a concubine could dream of." Eliza's jaw tightened. "It will look as though you're apologizing to her." "Good," I replied. "Let them think that until they remember whose crest is carved into every box." The ladies exchanged looks. Not pitying, not fearful, something closer to awe. I continued. "We will hold the selection ceremony in the Western Gardens, but not before the dignitaries arrive. Elves from Lindros, the desert envoys, the celestial delegation," Eliza recounted. "All for the winter solstice. And they will greet me," I said firmly. "Not Rose." My voice felt different, not obedient, but honed, like a blade newly drawn. "We do this quickly, gracefully, and then we return to the real work of ruling a kingdom." The ladies bowed. As they dispersed, I stood before my mirror, watching frost flicker across the bottom edge of the glass here and gone again. Something inside me was changing, something rising. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it. It was my duty to greet the dignitaries and emissaries who had come for the annual winter solstice festivities. As I rounded the castle entrance with my ladies-in-waiting, I froze. A cluster of noblewomen had gathered near the archway, whispering and giggling, their eyes bright with excitement. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice sharp with curiosity. "Your Majesty," Countess Eliza whispered into my ear, "look at the next carriage." Turning, I saw a gleaming string of snow-white stallions approaching, their harnesses gilded in silver, the kind of procession reserved only for royalty of the highest rank. "Who do you believe it is?" I asked. One of the noblewomen fanned herself dramatically. "It's Prince Henry of the Celestial Isles. They say he's the most handsome man in the continent, more powerful than half the kings who sit on thrones. We simply had to catch a glimpse." Prince Henry. I had heard the rumours of his striking good looks, whispered across kingdoms. Cunning and fearless, he was a man no one dared cross, yet every woman longed to meet. And beneath all that mystique was something more dangerous. The Celestial Isles were the only realm whispered to still possess magic. Shifted bloodlines, ancient transformations, power outlawed everywhere else. My fingers tingled at the memory of the hawk's message. Magic. Power in me. Were these whispers connected? I knew Aldrich dismissed him as a scoundrel, a womanizer, but even in his disdain he was forced to bow to the political weight of the Isles. Aldrich needed their support to strengthen our kingdom, and he hated needing anyone. As the carriage drew nearer, the noblewomen whispered feverishly, "They say Prince Henry breaks hearts for sport." "Henry isn't just handsome, he's dangerous. Women fall for him and men fear him. Careful, his gaze is like a spell. He breaks hearts as easily as he breathes." I nodded discreetly as I listened to their whispers. Yet an undeniable sensation stirred within me. Something inside me pulsed, sharp and familiar, as if I already knew him, as if his presence had brushed mine before. My heart stumbled at the thought. I was still a married woman, whether Aldrich treated me as such or not. The ornate carriage finally pulled to a stop. The insignia of the Celestial Isles gleamed in the winter light. I drew a steady breath. I had to make a good impression. They were our closest ally and our most unpredictable threat. I watched as a footman opened the carriage door, admitting a man into the sunlight. The prince. The whispers hadn't lied. He was tall, broad-shouldered, moving with a fluid strength that felt otherworldly. Light caught in his golden hair, turning him into something radiant, something dangerous, something I felt before he ever touched me. "Prince Henry," I said with a small curtsy. "I am Queen Bronwyn. Welcome to Elisaria." He didn't bow. He took my hand, slowly, deliberately, and sank to one knee like a knight pledging fealty. And unlike every knight before him, he never broke eye contact. His lips brushed my fingers. Heat shot up my arm, and then ice. A thin frost shimmered over my fingertips before I could stop it. My breath hitched. I pulled my hand back, concealing the impossible bloom of magic behind my skirts. His voice dropped, warm and velvety. "A queen of your strength," he murmured, "belongs to a far greater destiny than this court." My heart skipped. The words felt familiar, too familiar. The hawk's message pulsed in my memory. The power burning in you is real. Henry's gaze lingered, deep and unreadable, as if he could see past my skin, straight into the secret I was trying so desperately to hide. "I hope you find our kingdom pleasing," I managed. His smile curved, slow and knowing. "Oh, Your Majesty, I find power wherever it chooses to shine." I swallowed hard. Another echo, another hint, and long after he stepped away, I still felt the echo of his touch, and the dangerous possibility that he knew exactly what was awakening inside me. I greeted a lot of guests that day, but I couldn't forget Prince Henry's face, and the way he made me blush as I returned to my chambers. As soon as I entered, I heard a knocking sound on my window. It was the hawk, rapping upon the thin pane of glass with his beak. I rushed to meet the midnight hawk upon the windowsill. He immediately held out his foot, evidently eager to deliver the latest note, which read, "I have arrived at the Imperial Palace. Do you know who I am?" What? My secret correspondent was here? I didn't even know if these notes came from a man or a woman, if the writer was young or old, or what rank in society they held. It was almost impossible to determine Majesty's owner without further clues. I took up my quill. I do not know who you are, but do you truly know who I am? I was one of countless people living in the palace, and the hawk's master couldn't be sure to whom the bird was delivering his letters. As soon as the hawk saw me rolling the little parchment once more, he hopped to my side. Having tied the note to the bird's leg, I stroked his head once again. All right, it's time to fly once more. Can you take my note back to your master? The hawk stretched his wings and leapt out of the window at my command. I was already sorry to see him go. After a few moments, Sir Artemis knocked at my door. Your Majesty, the noblewomen are here. He didn't want to say it, but what he was really telling me was that it was time for the lady-in-waiting selection ceremony. Despite the tightening in my stomach, I couldn't deny the request. Sir Artemis escorted me to the garden courtyard. Only noblewomen were invited, yet the turnout was overwhelming. Good. The more witnesses, the harder it would be for Rose to shape the narrative. My dearest subjects, I began, I thank you for coming. I must confess there is an additional purpose to tonight's gathering. A hush fell. His Majesty has asked that I select a lady-in-waiting for his concubine, Miss Rose. A ripple of discomfort swept the garden. This must be settled before the solstice ball, I continued. If anyone among you, or your acquaintance, would serve Miss Rose. Silence, only the shifting of silk. Fear, not loyalty. At last Lady Alice stepped forward. It's rumoured, she whispered, that Miss Rose is a runaway slave. A murmur rippled outward, sharp and eager. She is only a commoner, I said quickly, echoing Aldrich's lie with more calm than I felt. She was injured. The king brought her to heel. Polite nods, disbelieving smiles, before I could press further. Gasps cut through the courtyard. Rose stumbled into the garden. Hair loose, eyes wild, cheeks splotched red. She was clearly wine-drunk. You know nothing of me, she shrieked, pointing at the nobles. None of you. You'd be lucky to serve me. A few ladies flinched. Others smirked. Then her gaze locked on mine. And you, she spat. You pretend to be perfect. But I know the truth. I know your secret. The garden froze. My heart slammed once hard. Had she seen the frost, the letter, the hawk? What secret? A noblewoman breathed. Rose swayed. Oh, she hides it well. The Queen, she thinks she's better than me. But she has a darkness in her, a chill. I've felt it, she's not normal. Murmurs erupted. My spine tightened, but I didn't flinch. Careful, I murmured. You aren't stable enough to finish that sentence. Rose's hands curled into fists. She thinks her cold heart makes her powerful, but the king will see the truth. And when he does... A voice interrupted the chaos. Your Majesty. Gasps, squeals. Two ladies swooned into each other. Prince Henry stood at the entrance of the garden, framed by torchlight like a painting come alive. Tall, golden, impossibly handsome, and his eyes were locked on me. Forgive my intrusion, he said, bowing just deeply enough to be seductive. But it seemed this gathering lacked a touch of civility. Rose's face drained of colour. Whispers exploded. Prince Henry. He came to see the Queen? Do you think the rumours are true that he favours her? The Isles are here for her, not the king. He could choose her. He could change everything. Rose's jaw clenched so tightly I thought her teeth might crack. Your Majesty, she hissed towards Henry. I don't recall summoning you. Henry didn't even acknowledge her. He extended a hand toward me instead. Queen Bronwyn, he murmured. You are needed. Rose's eyes bulged. The nobles leaned forward, breathless. Why would you need the Queen? Someone gasped. Henry smiled knowingly, wickedly. My lady, I was hoping that you could show me the palace. I would like to familiarize myself with it, but my sense of direction is sadly lacking, and I'm afraid that I will get lost. Prince Henry, such a request is a little unusual, and I have a great deal of work to do. Perhaps I could send for one of the footmen. No, I want only you. More gasps and squeals from the crowd. Rose snapped. She actually lunged forward, voice cracking. Aldrich will hear of this, he'll hear everything. Good, I thought. Let him. She spun and ran, skirts flapping wildly, her maid scrambling after her. Henry offered his arm. The garden held its breath. I placed my hand on his sleeve, not timidly, but like a woman choosing her own path at last. Shall we? He asked. Yes, I said, letting a slow smile curve my lips. Let's. Gasps followed us as we turned into the shadowed corridors of the garden, and Rose's furious footsteps pounded away toward the king. I was sure that Prince Henry felt the tension string through my body, not wanting the king to get involved. So I said the only thing that came to mind. Prince Henry, run. Run? With his brow furrowed in question, I quickly turned to Artemis and whispered, "It is time to fulfill your oath to me, good knight. Handle these noble women while I escape." With that, I pulled hard on Henry's arm, and we dashed through the garden, grinning as we went, thrilled by the escape and the foolishness of it all. Evergreens and holly blurred past us as we ran, gasping and giggling around the hedgerows, like children, until Henry tugged on my arm and pulled me out of sight behind a tall row of laurel. Winded and spent, we gasped for breath, grinning at each other. Are we being followed? As Henry leaned to peer around the hedgerow, I could feel the heat of him, the proximity making me aware of every inch of him. It took all my control not to reach out and place my hand on his chest. I see nobody. We're in the clear. Henry turned back to me then, and it was plain from the expression on his face that he too had become suddenly aware of every inch of me, of our closeness. His gaze drifted to my lips, then quickly away. Neither one of us spoke, but the silence between us was thick with expectation. Commoners would have kissed without a second thought, but we were royals. Henry shook his head and looked away. Do you not find me handsome? My goodness, what a question. It's a question I need answering, for by now most people, especially women, will do just about anything for me. Is my face swollen today? I made sure to dress finely, and yet the Queen remains cold. I must have heard him wrong. With my mouth surely agape, I stopped and stared at him. Did he say this in jest? So blatant? Henry glanced around the hedgerow once more, then offered me his arm again. Shall we? It appears that the coast is clear. Taking up each other's arms again, we continued our stroll, this time very much alone. So that woman. I suppose she is the king's rumoured mistress? I noticed that the prince used the term mistress instead of concubine. This too was not typical of nobility, but it was a more accurate representation of Rose's status, and he obviously made the unflattering distinction for my benefit. I couldn't help but smile. Seeing that his attempts at brightening my spirits were working, Henry continued speaking. The king is a strange man. How could he look elsewhere for other women when the Queen stands in front of him? I turned my face away from him. It is a question I too have been asking myself as of late. It is a question you deserve an answer for, my lady. Thank you for your kind words, Prince Henry. There is no need to thank me. If he cannot appreciate you, then he's a fool who does not deserve you. Wow, he speaks so plainly. Majesty, would you grant me an invitation to the royal banquet on the last day of the winter solstice celebrations as your guest? I stiffened. Why? He didn't answer at once. Instead, he slowed his pace, his arms still linked with mine as we stepped beneath a trellis of climbing winter roses. When he finally looked at me, his eyes were too knowing. Because, he said softly, something tells me the solstice will matter to you. A pause. More than you realize. My breath caught. A flash of the hawk's message pulsed through my mind. Someone is here. Someone who sees the power you hide. At the solstice, your chains will break. Prince Henry, what exactly do you mean by that? He didn't smile this time. He studied me, as though searching for the truth beneath my skin. Winter is a cruel season for secrets, he murmured. They crack. They melt. They show what lies beneath. Another heartbeat passed. And you, Majesty, you are not meant to be hidden. A chill rippled down my spine, not cold, but electric, as though the frost beneath my skin answered him. I forced myself to look away. Is this another attempt at flattery? I asked. Because no. His voice was quiet but firm, cutting through my protest. I am asking for an invitation because I intend to witness it. Witness what? He leaned infinitesimally closer, breath brushing my cheek. Whatever it is, he whispered, that you are becoming. My heart slammed once, hard enough to jar my breath. I don't know what you think you see in me, I managed. Henry's gaze dropped to my hands where, unbeknownst to me, a thin shimmer of frost dusted my fingertips before vanishing. Oh, I see enough, he said, and more will see it soon. I swallowed, including the king. He gave a slow, unreadable smile, especially the king. My pulse stuttered. Henry stepped back, bowing with polished ease, but something in his eyes was anything but formal. "When the solstice arrives," he said, "your world may finally shift. I only hope you allow me a place at your side to witness it." And then, as if he sensed I could ask no more, he turned, cloak trailing through the frost-tipped grass. "Prince Henry." But he didn't look back. He simply lifted a hand in parting. "A lantern shines brightest on the darkest night, Majesty, and the darkest night is nearly here." He disappeared between the hedges. I stood among the roses, the wind cold and whispering. A strange truth settled in my bones. Henry wasn't asking for an invitation to flirt with me. He was asking to watch the moment I became something else. Something I didn't yet understand. Something the hawk had promised. "At the solstice, your chains will break." The question now was simple. When they did, who would I be standing beside? And who would fall? That night, I crawled into bed feeling more divided than I had in my entire life. The room was quiet, but my mind was anything but. Tomorrow marked the beginning of the winter solstice celebrations. 3 days of feasts, diplomacy, spectacle, and judgment. Every kingdom, every alliance, every noble pair of eyes. What would Aldrich do with them all watching? Would he stand beside me as a united front, king and queen? Or would he parade Rose openly, daring the world to question him? My stomach twisted. The crown felt heavier than ever. And then there was him, my secret admirer, the one who kept sending messages through a hawk's talons and moonlit feathers, the one who'd written, "At the solstice your chains will break." Who was he? Was Henry hinting at the same thing? Did he know more than he said about me, about my powers, about what I was turning into? I shut my eyes, trying to breathe, trying to silence the storm inside me. But the moment darkness settled, the question sharpened. What did Henry mean when he said the solstice would reveal my true face? What chains was I wearing, and what would happen when they broke? Would my secret admirer reveal himself? Would the entire court see what I'm becoming? A tremor moved through my fingertips. A cold pulse, soft but unmistakable. A surge I had felt earlier when Henry brushed my hand, when the hawk looked at me like it knew me. When my mother once whispered that magic always begins as a chill under the skin. I stared at my palm in the candlelight. Frost shimmered there, just for an instant. A delicate veil of ice that melted as quickly as it formed. My breath caught. Tomorrow, I would have to stand before the entire realm, beside a king who no longer loved me, against a woman who wanted to replace me, under the gaze of a prince who might destroy me or save me, and before a stranger who believed he owned my heart. Sleep did not come. Only one thought lingered as the candles burned low. Tomorrow something would break, and I had no idea whether it would be my marriage, or me. Finally, the night of the winter solstice ball was here. I rang the silver bell, and Countess Eliza entered with the dress she had prepared for me. "It's the first day of the festivities, Your Highness, so we must all look our best," Eliza said, smoothing the silk along my shoulders. "For an event like this, my queen should stand out. The concept for this gown is the Queen of Snow. Seems appropriate, wouldn't you say?" The gown shimmered in the candlelight, frost-white silk and crystal beading that caught every breath I took. When they fastened the last clasp, and I turned to the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back, pale, composed, remote. "You look ethereal, Your Majesty," Eliza whispered. I managed to smile. "Thank you, Eliza." The corridor outside the ballroom shimmered with candlelight, golden, warm, deceptively calm. And there he was, Aldrich, waiting for me. Not with indifference, not with bored protocol, but with rage simmering beneath the surface, the kind that vibrated through the air before he even spoke. Bronwyn, just my name, low, controlled, dangerous. His jaw was tight, his eyes burned, and I knew exactly why. Rose had run straight to him, breathless, trembling, the perfect victim telling the perfect lie about the Queen and the foreign prince in the gardens. I approached slowly, my pulse pounding ice through my veins. "Aldrich," I said coolly. He stepped closer. "Tell me something. Did you enjoy it?" I blinked. "Enjoy what?" "The attention." His eyes were sharp as blades. "Prince Henry touching you, whispering to you in my gardens, making a spectacle of my queen in front of half the court." My breath stilled. He was being polite. "Polite?" Aldrich laughed once, cold and humorless. "You have no idea who that man really is. You have heard the rumours about him, have you not? Hearing rumours and believing them are two very different things, Aldrich. Bronwyn, don't be so naive. He's a womanizer, which means he's an expert at saying just the right things to get what he wants. And he wants your power. Power. Did Henry know about it? Could he be the master of the Hawk? I certainly wondered if I had indeed fell under Henry's spell because he knew exactly what to say to me. Was it because he understood me like nobody else before? Or was he only saying those things to get me closer to what he wanted? Aldrich leaned in, voice barely above a whisper. I'm trying to protect you. Ice pricked down my spine. Protect me, I hissed, by humiliating me, by dragging me through the court while Rose flaunts herself on your arm. Forgive me if I don't believe you, Aldrich. The words slipped out like shards of frost. Sharp. Final. Aldrich froze. For the first time in months, he looked uncertain. You're different, he murmured. Cold. Sharp. I don't know what's gotten into you. The torches along the wall flickered. A chill rippled through the air. I felt it, the familiar surge beneath my skin, the one I didn't understand, the one I feared. Frost bloomed faintly along the marble beneath my slippers. Aldrich's gaze snapped downward. Bronwyn? I stepped back quickly, hiding the frost under my gown. You're imagining things, I said. He didn't believe me. I could see the doubt in his eyes, the calculation. But before he could question it, a shadow cut across the torchlight. The midnight hawk descended silently, landing on the stone balustrade beside me. So close its feathers brushed my shoulder. Aldrich jerked back as if struck. What in the... The hawk extended one leg. Another message tied to its talon. The timing was too perfect, too terrible. With trembling fingers, I removed the ribbon and unrolled the parchment. The ink shimmered like moonlit water. Tonight all will be revealed. My breath caught. Aldrich stepped closer, trying to read it over my shoulder. Bronwyn. But before he could finish, the massive ballroom doors creaked wide, spilling golden light and hundreds of watching eyes across us. A court waiting for its king and queen. Aldrich straightened, fury barely contained. Whatever game you're playing with Henry, he murmured darkly, end it now. I slipped my hand from his grip as I stepped forward, into the light, into the winter solstice ball. After gazing upon the scene in front of us, Aldrich raised his hand, and everyone bowed in response. All except one. Rose. She stood in the very centre of the ballroom, surrounded by a host of foreign nobles. I struggled to keep the smile upon my face, but I found it difficult to breathe. Calling upon my greatest skills as a queen, outwardly I kept my composure, but inwardly my mind whirled. Aldrich was beside me, but within a second, he parted ways with me as Rose caught his attention. The murmurs spread through the room. Aldrich didn't even hear them. He only saw her. I grabbed 3 back-to-back goblets of mead from a passing tray and downed them all. It's time to dance, I announced, too loudly. The alcohol was doing its work. The ladies around me giggled nervously and drifted off to find a dance partner. The first dance was the most meaningful. Tradition dictated it belonged to the king and queen. Since our marriage, Aldrich had always claimed that dance with me. But this year was different. And, sure enough, from the corner of my eye, I saw Aldrich reaching for Rose's hand. The musicians started the opening waltz. In order to preserve what little dignity I had left, I thought it better to leave the room altogether. I was crying inside, but kept my chin high as I strode across the throne room. But before I reached the door, a hand touched my shoulder. I spun around to find Prince Henry extending his hand to me. Majesty, would you kindly do me the honour of this dance? I was sure that my mouth fell open in surprise. Around us, the nobles renewed their whispering. Is Prince Henry really asking the Queen to dance? He's shameless, asking the Queen in full view of the court. Maybe she didn't need much convincing. You've seen how she looks at him. Some say she's not as cold as she pretends. They all whispered their gossip. Honestly, at this point I didn't care about these rumours. If he could keep a concubine, I could at least dance with a prince. I wanted to say yes to Henry, both to punish Aldrich and, if I was being honest, for my own selfish reasons. I rested my green gaze upon the prince and gave him my answer. Very well. Upon taking Prince Henry's hand, he led me in a wide sweep of the dance floor, showing off for all to see. I could feel every eye upon us, but most especially Aldrich's. He glared at Prince Henry as though he had stolen something of his. The music began, and we started our whirl around the floor. The throne room had transformed into a kaleidoscope of colour, with all the couples dancing, and of course, dancing in the centre, Aldrich and Rose. Prince Henry must have noticed the change in my expression when we waltzed past them, for he pulled me in closer and whispered into my ear, "At this moment, do not think about anything, not even your husband. But people will talk." He nodded, then, twirling me around, pulled me in close once more. People will always talk. It's how they brighten their dull lives, by concerning themselves with the business of others. I glanced up at him in surprise. This man understood me. But was he manipulating me in some way? Was Aldrich right about him? Without even thinking, I found myself pulling close to him so I could whisper back into his ear. "But what about the rumours about you? Do they also not bother you at all?" "They don't. But do you believe those things about me?" "No. Why not?" Prince Henry said, smiling playfully. "How do you know I'm not a womanizer, that I don't fraternise with black-hearted pirates, or that I killed my infant nephews just so that I could secure my own reign over the Celestial Isles?" I stared into the fathomless depths of his eyes. "I can see it in your face, Prince Henry. You may have secrets, but not those." Henry looked taken aback, staring at me as though I'd peeled back a layer he'd never meant anyone to see. He drew in a slow breath, his lips parting his gaze, drifting unmistakably to the faint icy shimmer I could feel forming in my eyes. "Majesty," he murmured, voice low enough to tremble against my skin. "There are things whispered about me, dark things, dangerous things, but none of them frighten me half as much as the truth about you." My breath caught. He leaned closer, his lips brushing my ear, not touching, but so close I felt the heat of him. "Has no one told you?" I froze. "Told me what?" "Enough!" Aldrich interrupted. The music crashed to a halt. Henry flinched, jaw tightening as though the interruption physically hurt him. He stepped back only enough to bow to the king, but his eyes were still locked on mine. What secret had he been about to tell me? I opened my mouth to ask. "Prince!" But Aldrich appeared between us like a storm breaking. "Now you dance with me, your husband." His eyes burned with emotions I couldn't name. He extended his hand to me. He had barely touched me since Rose arrived. And now here he was, claiming me in front of the entire court. Why now? Did he know what Henry was about to tell me? The music started again. As we began to dance, he leaned in, voice barely above a whisper. "I tried to warn you, you have no idea who that man really is." Ice pricked down my spine. "And you do?" I shot back. His expression flickered. I risked a glance over my shoulder. I found Prince Henry, drink in hand, watching me. Unfortunately, Aldrich noticed where my attention had gone. "I have Rose as my concubine, so I will not tell you that you cannot take another man as your lover as well. But still, I must warn you against Prince Henry. I don't know what you're talking about. If you are with Prince Henry, he will not be your concubine. You will be his." What game had just begun on the ballroom floor? And what part was Queen Bronian supposed to play? Is Prince Henry there to save Bronwyn from her marriage, or to use her forbidden powers for something else? A jealous king, a slave-turned-concubine, a mysterious prince who knows the magic she's trying to hide. Something was going to break her marriage, her chains, or the entire kingdom. Which will it be?
Wait, that's not the end. You've just had a free taste. Now get the full story on the Pocket FM app, link in description. Check out our next video and playlist, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.